we're never given answers to these because they don't have answers to these things, because that's how science is done. Science wants to know how it's done. So, evolutionary theory is the best explanation we have for this. It is provisionally true, true with a small t. We're not after, somebody mentioned truth earlier. Truth with a capital T doesn't belong in science. It's provisionally true. Why?
Sir. Thank you, sir. All right. There must be a misunderstanding here. I don't believe I ever said tonight that science is a religion. I said evolution is a religion. Evolution is not part of science. That's the point. I think you're missing that, Dr. Shermer, and I'll just reiterate that. I'm not against science. I happen to like science, okay? So no, I'm not against science. Now, the evolution theory is positively anti-science. There's not a shred of real evidence to support the theory other than oft-repeated lies. Now, if you have evidence for evolution, I really want to see it. But I heard some things in the last 25 minutes that Dr. Shermer said that he ought to know, I'm sure he knows, are simply lies. They've been proven wrong years ago. Well, the word people used to be called Homo sapiens. In the most recent books, they're calling us Homo sapien sapien. The word sapien means wise. We're the wise, wise man. We're bright. Well, the Bible says that professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Okay? And if you think your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa was a rock, I think you're a fool. Okay? Well, we can help you, though. We're here to help. Let's define some terms. Stupid. Lacking normal intelligence. Foolish. Silly. A stupid idea. Evolution is not even a good theory. It is stupid. Okay? How many teachers they have, how many courses do they offer here on biblical creationism, just to give the kids the other side? Go check your library. You'll find thousands of books about evolution. I bet you won't find 5 on creation, from the creation perspective. You may find some evolutionist wrote a book about creation, blasting it for some reason. Folks, is this an education do you get educated or do you get indoctrinated in places like this? I'm sick and tired of them lying to support their theory. Don't tell me about the vestigial structures. What evidence do you have to show us evolution? Not homology. Similar bone structures in the arms they mentioned earlier. Yeah, that proves a common designer. The Honda Prelude and the Honda Accord have quite a few interchangeable parts. Doesn't prove they both came from a skateboard. They have a common designer, okay? My goals are to present the truth and expose error. I'm not against any particular theory. I'm against lies. If you have a theory, great. If you're going to use lies to support it, that's not great. So my goals are to strengthen the faith of believers, to win the lost to Christ, and to win Michael Shermer to Christ. Okay? He is not the enemy. He does work for him, but he is not the enemy. Okay. All right. Let's define a few terms here tonight. Science is knowledge. It comes from the word to know. Okay? Knowledge gained by observations, experimentation, testing, study, etc. Okay? Some try to limit the definition of science like we heard tonight. They want to limit it to the natural world. If it's not natural, it's not science. Okay, well, let's just follow that logic to its logical conclusion. The operation of the world can be understood by scientific discoveries in the world. That does not mean you can explain the origin of the world by looking in the world. Okay, example. The operation of a computer can be understood by science. It all takes place in the computer. There's nothing magic about a computer. There's not a little man running around in there changing the numbers on the screen. Okay? It is a natural explanation that you can find in the computer for how the computer works. There is not a natural explanation in the computer for how the computer originated. You had to go outside the computer. Somebody outside the computer built the computer. Okay? Somebody outside, beyond, above, greater than, smarter than the computer had to build the computer. And just because you can explain the operation of a machine does not mean you can explain the origin of the machine with the same set of rules. So, religion is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe. I'm going to define a few positions here. I take the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. The earth was created in 6 literal 24-hour days about 6,000 years ago. Now, if that's true, I call our ministry Creation Science Evangelism. I think the scientific evidence supports the creation view. A good test for science is, does it make predictions? Okay, based on the idea that the earth was created in 6 days, 6,000 years ago, there are some predictions we can make. The Bible says clearly he did it all in 6 days. Well, let's make a few predictions. I predict the universe will show evidence of order and intelligent design. I predict there will be thousands, if not millions, of symbiotic relationships. All the plants and animals were created within a few days of each other. And there are millions of these that depend on different things for different reasons. symbiotic relationships, I think, defy an evolutionary explanation. I predict there'll be limits to the variations that life forms are able to produce. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind. You may get a big dog or a little dog, or a wolf or a coyote or a dog, but you're going to get the same kind of animal. Now, somebody might decide to call it a new species. Okay, I'm not using the word species. It's the same kind of animal. Limits to the variations. Any farmer that raises anything from corn to cows will tell you there are limits. Sure, there's varieties, but they're limited. Okay? Lots of dogs in the world might have had a common ancestor. A dog. Okay? I predict, based on, that does not prove dogs came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago, by the way. Okay. I predict there will be a purpose to life. We were designed for a purpose. I think I know what it is. Based on the assumption, we can make some predictions that there will be non-material things in the world like love, sense of justice, mercy, innate knowledge of right and wrong, a conscience, and absolute truth. Those things can be found. They do exist. I predict there'll be a way to find the will of the Creator, such as messengers speaking for Him, or maybe even a book telling us how He created it and why. I predict there'll be an afterlife where we face the Creator to give an accounting for everything we've ever said or thought or done. That's going to be a fearful day. Then I believe, before the flood came, the Bible teaches people lived over 900 years. That's what the Bible says. 912 is the average age from those before the flood. I believe that. Now, what predictions can we make based on that teaching? Well, I predict there will be legends of a creation event in cultures all over the world. I predict there'll be a golden age legend where people lived a long time. And it's interesting, almost all ancient cultures have stories about what they called the golden age, when people lived to be nearly 1,000. I predict there'll be skeletons found showing people with signs of great age, such as bigger brow ridge or bigger jaws. I predict there'll be biological problems today, like wisdom teeth for 40 or 50% of the population, indicating man used to be bigger and now we're smaller. So wisdom teeth are getting crowded into the jaw, and in some people they can't make it in. I predict since we are a copy off 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 a copy of the original, there are likely to be a few biological problems with this generation. But that's no reflection on the original. The fact that this gene code has been copied and copied and copied and copied and copied from Adam, it's amazing we can sit here and talk about it. Okay? It must have been really good in the original. I predict there'll be a universal longing for things to be restored to the Garden of Eden. And that's what we find every place. Just about every culture has some kind of legend or story about a heaven where you get to go. Now, what difference does it make if you believe in creation or evolution? Well, if evolution is true, how do we tell right from wrong? Where's the standard? How do we tell right from wrong? Do we decide right from wrong based on what Osama bin Laden thinks? Should we decide right from wrong based on what Bill Clinton thinks? Should we decide right from wrong based on what the majority thinks? Is there a standard someplace? How do we tell right from wrong if evolution is true? Now, if evolution is true, death brought man into the world, and death is a wonderful thing. Death is the hero of the plot. See, in order for evolution to work, one animal has to evolve a little better than the rest. The rest of them have to die, or else that new improved gene gets swamped in the population. Doesn't do anything. Death is the ultimate hero of the plot for evolution. The Bible teaches clearly that man brought death into the world. By one man, sin came into the world, and death by sin. Since by man came death. The Bible talks about man destroyed God's creation. I predict, according to the Bible, I read the Bible, it says there was a flood, a completely worldwide, universal flood that destroyed the world 4,400 years ago and dropped everybody's property value to zero. Based on that belief, I can make a few predictions. I predict there will be hundreds of layers of strata. Rock layers and mud layers, strata, sometimes continent-wide layers of strata. I predict there will be billions of fossils, including coal and oil, found in those layers. I predict there will be huge canyons and deltas showing evidence of rapid erosion because of the flood teaching. I predict there will be legends of this worldwide flood found in cultures all over the world. And sure enough, there are nearly 300 of these flood legends found from around the world. I predict there will be petrified trees in the vertical position running through many of these layers. And sure enough, there are thousands of them. And here we have people trying to teach you that each of these layers is a different age. Would you please explain to me how we get a tree petrified connecting all these layers? I don't know how long dead trees stand up around here in California before they fall down, but in Florida you get maybe 5 or 6 years. If you're going to have a tree stand there for millions of years while the layers form around it, I'd like to see that, okay? Anybody telling you those layers are different ages has a problem in his thinking, okay? Now, I like science. I'm not against science. And I do resent, though, people trying to assume that evolution is part of science. Evolution is not part of science. Evolution is a religion. It's mixed in with science, I understand. But that doesn't make it part of science. Beer is often sold at football games. Beer has nothing to do with football, and beer does not become athletic by association with football, okay? So, and evolution does not become science because it's stirred into a science book, okay? Evolution's a religion. Now, it's a lie. There's no proof any animals are related to different kinds of animals, okay? Mutations do not produce any kind of evolution. Anybody that studies the subject will tell you that. Mutations scramble information that's already existing. Here's a 5-legged bull. There's no new information added. A short-legged sheep. Again, no new information. It's a loss of information. Here's a 2-headed turtle. That's a mutant. It's not ninja, but he's mutant. He's going to freeze first winter because nobody makes a double-neck turtleneck sweater, okay? No. Scrambling up existing gene code will not give you something totally new. That's all mutations do, is scramble up things. Animal area are negative. You think that process is going to turn a rock to a human in 4.6 billion years? That's the one they always bring out. Well, if you think that's going to do it, I admire your faith. I don't admire your intelligence, but I do admire your faith, okay? Natural selection selects. It doesn't create anything. It's a selection process. Creation is thought of at first. Natural selection is not a creative force. It can't create anything. It selects. That's all it does. It can't create a thing, okay? If you worked in a factory that produced cars, and your job was to select the good ones to go through and select the bad ones to go out, be fixed or, scrapped, how long would it take that selection process of letting good cars through to change the car to an airplane? It'll never happen. See, the natural selection is never going to change the animal to something else. It's just going to make sure you get a good species of whatever it is, whether it's cows or corn, okay? You may get a big dog or a little dog, but you get a dog every single time. And I have 5-year-olds. When I do this test, almost always they get it. I'll say, here we have a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Which one is not like the others? Yeah, the banana. The Bible says they bring forth after their kind, not species, kind. Okay, and that's all we've ever observed. Variations happen, but they have limits. Farmers have been trying to get bigger pigs for a long time, but they'll never get a pig as big as Texas. Roaches become resistant to pesticides, but they will never become resistant to a sledgehammer. Okay? Okay? They always still produce the same kind of plant or animal. No new information is created. It's always scrambling existing information. That's all we observe. Now, science is what we can see and study and test. If you want to believe it goes beyond that, that's fine. I don't care what you believe. But it's not science. No new information is added, okay? The gene pool of the new variety is always more limited. They can take a herd of dogs or a flock of dogs or whatever you want to call them and select the gene code to get a little tiny dog or a great big dog. They have the genetic variety in the original gene code. You can select for a slice of the gene code and get a particular trait that you want, okay? Long tail feathers on a bird. Can't fly anymore, but you get really long tail feathers. Okay, good. But you didn't create anything. You selected part of the gene pool that was already existing. Somebody kept breeding dogs till they got a Chihuahua. All that time and money to make a dog that is 100% useless. How long would the Chihuahuas last in the real world? Yeah, go ahead, make my day. Right, yeah. Genetic information is lost. It's not added. There's no new. Real evolution would require an increase in genetic complexity. You got to take the gene pool of a rock, which is nothing, and develop the gene pool of every living thing on Earth today. Talk about a genetic bottleneck. Take a look at the gene code of a rock sometime, okay? There's a lot of kinds of corn in the world, okay? They probably had a common ancestor. Corn. You never get a hamster or a tomato or whale to grow on your corn stalk, though, okay? That he said. He mentioned there is evidence for evolution from homology, from vestigial structures. The human eye is a poor design. I won't think I'll be able to cover all that, but you can get my video series on my website, drdino.com, and watch the whole thing. This textbook says the appendix is vestigial. This is ludicrous, okay? This is a lie. The appendix is not vestigial. You do need your appendix, okay? The appendix is part of your immune system. It's true you can live without it. You can also live without both your legs and both your arms and both your eyes. That doesn't prove you don't need them, okay? If your appendix is taken out, you have a much better chance of getting quite a few diseases, and something else in the immune system has to work harder. It's like losing a finger. You can still have a grip, but now the rest of the fingers have to work harder. If somebody tells you the appendix is vestigial, they are either confused about their anatomy or they're lying to you, but it's not true. Either these authors are ignorant of anatomy or they're lying. I don't see another option, okay? If you know of one, please let me know. But it's not true that they're vestigial. And even if there were vestigial structures, that is the opposite. He mentioned that the human eye is poor design because the blood vessels are in front of the rods and cones. Well, the fact of the matter is, we live in the air, okay? Air is a poor insulator for UV light. Your body's last defense against ultraviolet light is a layer of blood vessels in front of the retina to protect the rods and cones from UV light. Some people say octopus. One atheist I debated in New York said octopus have a much better eye because their blood vessels are behind the retina. Ours are wired backwards. It's poor design. I said, well, sir, octopus live in the water. Okay? Water blocks UV light. They don't need their blood vessels in front. So if you want to swap eyes with an octopus, you just go ahead, but you're going to be blind in a few days. We're designed for living in the air, and they're designed for living in the water. And I think the eye is incredibly designed. At 51, mine are starting to fade a little bit, but hey, that's expected, okay? That's an example we used to be much better. Things are getting worse. That's the second law of thermodynamics. Things are falling apart. Let's see. He mentioned that when he got through Pepperdine, he went off to graduate school and decided he got to think. To me, that implies that if you don't believe in evolution, you're not thinking. I happen to resent that. I happen to think a lot, and I enjoy thinking, and I enjoy the object of I enjoy science. I like studying. I think what happens, though, is you get to get indoctrinated when you come to a university like this. You get to be told what to believe. You don't really get to think. Because if you wrote a paper, suppose a teacher stood up 10 years ago in the Soviet Union, where my daughter-in-law is from. Teacher gets up in class and says, hey, students, I don't believe in communism anymore. Capitalism is a much better system. What would happen? That teacher would be shoveling snow in Siberia if they survived. And if a teacher gets up in this university tomorrow or Monday and says, kids, I don't believe in evolution anymore. I think creation is true. They will go to academic Siberia. There have been hundreds of teachers fired, lost their jobs, lost their government grants, precisely because they didn't bow down and kiss the feet of the sacred cow of evolution. Evolution's a religion, nothing more. There's no scientific evidence to back it up. If you think there is some, I really, really would like to see it. He mentioned that the Pope accepts evolution. That's because the Pope has never been to my seminar.